and I just found out the fucking Biden won. Fucking hell. And my fucking roommate locked me out of the house because he got drunk, and he's fucking pissed at me for some fucking reason. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So I'm spending the night out here in the shop. But don't worry for me. I got a couch, I got a bed, and well, not a bed, but I got a couch, I got a blanket, and I got a little space heater. It's not a lot, but it's better than nothing. And the saying goes. This will soon be my new office too, but it's, as you can see, it's under construction. But to be 100% honest with you, I need to move, man. I love this town, I really do. It's just that. And said, where I live, it's just insanity. You know. But anyhow, we are investigating ghosts of the London Underground. And I got some dab from the pot shop. Fucking winter gear ain't doing shit. This is my new winter gear, by the way. And I got about a gram. I already burned through half the gram, but I got about a gram of, what was it called? I forget. Fuck, I had the fucking packaging here. There they are. Or, there it is. Whatever. Blackberry Banner, 71% THC. That's all I could get right now because there's a fucking weed shortage right now. Yeah, and all the good weed is already taken from the morning rush, so I had to stick with that. Got to turn that off. But let's get into the video. I'm gonna take a dab while it's starting. I skipped the intro and everything, just so you know.
Work had been fairly relaxed for Steve Coates. His shift had started at 10 p.m, and besides the inevitable rush of commuters in the last stretch before the tube station closed...
Before we continue, I forgot to mention, I got a new dab rig. Went down to the pot shop, or the smoke shop, my bad. Got that baby. Glows in the dark, has a reclaim catcher, and this is just so they'll have a bigger hit. But it really works good, man. I can tell you that much. It's a nice little dab rig, believe it or not. It's good. But I'm gonna take a rip off of this. If I can find a fucking dab stick I can use. Yes, there it is. Let's continue.
The early hours of this midweek morning had been quiet. As the supervisor of Liverpool Street Station in central London, he now busied himself in the ticket office, cashing up the tills and carrying out any number of other mundane administrative tasks. Steve much preferred the relative peace and quiet of the night shifts compared to the hustle and bustle of the daytime, even if they did seem to pass by more slowly. There was a strange sense of priviness in having such a large public space all to himself, a tranquility he otherwise rarely got to experience. On the desk in front of him, the phone began to ring, shattering the silence.
Okay.
Picking up the receiver,
Alright.
the familiar voice of the line controller, who was stationed off-site, told Steve that he was looking at the CCTV feed from the eastbound platform of Liverpool Street and that he could see a man down there, standing near to the tunnel
It's not a big
entrance.
hit, but I'm trying to ration my shit.
The station supervisor checked his watch. It was just after 2 a.m. The gates to the station had been closed and padlocked almost 3 hours beforehand, so there shouldn't have been anyone besides him inside the station itself. He told the line controller that he would go down and check, and then hung up. Taking the escalator down to the platform in question, Steve did a thorough sweep of the area. As he reached the eastbound tunnel entrance, he took out his torch and shone it along the tracks receding into the pitch dark of the subway. He also checked the line immediately below the platform as he made his way back, but there was no one there. The platform itself was completely empty. At the bottom of the escalators there was a public phone, which Steve used to call the line controller back and tell him that he had carried out a thorough search and that the platform was secure. But the line controller's response didn't make any sense.
That sucked.
I can see you on the monitor right now.
Well, at least I got a little blood too.
He's standing right there. He's wearing white overalls.
Confused, Steve agreed to take another
I've also
look,
got this.
leaving the
but
phone
I've had this
hanging
for a
with the
while.
controller on the other end of the
My little
line.
Nick the Collector.
He went off and performed another search, but still the platform was completely empty. "There's no one else here," he said to his colleague when he got back to the phone, but the line controller was having none of it.
How did you not see him? He was standing right next to you. He's wearing white overalls. You shone your torch right at him for several seconds. There's no way you could have seen him.
"Either you're winding up, or there is a glitch on your screen," Steve replied. "I've done 2 sweeps now, and I'm telling you, there is no one else here." With that, he put the phone down and turned to go back up the escalators,
There we go.
when something made him stop in his tracks. On the bench opposite, he saw a set of white overalls draped over the seat and armrest, which were definitely not there before. A sudden chill went up his spine as he quickened his pace
Melted.
and made his way back up to the ticket
It's all
office.
melted.
He wasn't to know it at the time, but he had just had a run-in with the famous Liverpool Street Ghost.
I've heard of the Liverpool Street Ghost before. Matter of fact, I had a buddy of mine who encountered it. He was standing there in the subway. There's a bunch of people around and such. And he saw a strange man wearing white overalls standing there at the tracks. Looked vaguely translucent. And once a person walked past him, like front of him and shit, he disappeared. And, yeah, he was a good guy. You know, whatnot. I wonder if any of y'all have done research into the Liverpool Street Ghost. Let me know in the comment section, because I'd like to do some research into that while I'm at it. You know, try to figure out who this ghost is. You know, I wonder if they've done any paranormal searches down there. There you go. Let's continue.
Opened in 1890, the London Underground is the oldest subway system in the world. Each year, 1.3 billion people pass through its 270 stations, which are collectively manned by nearly 6,000
Yes, I know
members
my
of
hair's a
staff.
fucking mess.
Most of the passengers who take the subway do so without a second thought,
It was a long day.
completely oblivious to the history which surrounds them. The ground in which this system is built has been settled upon for millennia. From the Underground's initial inception right up to the present day, there have been thousands of accidental
That's all the
deaths,
weed I got
suicides and tragic events.
I thought
Not to mention the amount of graveyards, cemeteries, plague pits and church
Unfortunately, I
crypts
can't
which have
do it
been
here.
disrupted or relocated
So.
during its construction. Add all of these things together, and the number of potentially
This is my
disturbed
little pipe.
souls begins to soar.
I've had it for a little while.
For the average commuter, The day-to-day experience of
No,
riding
it's
the
not
tube is
tobacco
one of
pipe, it is a
overcrowded
weed pipe.
chaos, especially in the headache-inducing rush hour.
Those handmade.
But if they were able to visit any one of the many
I didn't make
stations
it.
during the midnight
It
hours,
was a buddy
long
who
after
made it.
closing, they would discover an entirely different world. One which is mostly peaceful, but can also be unnerving, haunting, and downright eerie. What follows is just some of the stories told by those who work on the London Underground. In the summer of 1992, the supervisor of Beacon Tree Station, Tariq Rana, was working a late shift after closing down for the night. He was just finishing off some final paperwork and then planned to head home. On the right side of the office in which he was sitting, there was a door which led up to the overground district line platform. In the relative silence, this door began to rattle, but Tariq thought nothing of it. Rattling doors were a frequent occurrence, due to the updrafts and downdrafts created by passing trains. He simply assumed that a train was approaching on the district line. A few minutes later, when the door rattled a second time, he was sure he would soon hear the rumble of carriages passing above and to the right of him, but that sound never materialized. Confused, he made his way through the door and up onto the district line platform to see what was going on, but looking up and down the tracks, he could see that no trains were approaching from either the left or right. Even though he could feel no breeze on the night air, he reasoned that the rattling must have been caused by the wind and headed back down to the office to finish up. But no sooner had he closed the door behind him when it rattled a third
All my
time.
weeds inside too.
Now, however, it was much more sustained. Unnerved by this bizarre occurrence, he decided to head up to the station foyer, where another member of staff was working. As he stepped out onto the disused subway platform and began to make his way up the steps, he suddenly experienced an intense feeling that someone was standing behind him. Turning his head, he saw the terrifying image of a woman a few steps further down from where he was. She had long blonde hair, but no face. It was completely blank where her features should have been. Utterly shaken, Tariq turned to the station foyer, taking 3 steps at a time. When they met, his colleague remarked how he looked as if he had seen a ghost, and when Tariq replied saying, "I think I just have," his co-worker's response was, "Did you see the blonde woman with no face?" Apparently in 1958, there was a train collision at this...
I'm sorry. I know it seems kind of fun. I know it's probably not that funny, considering that it is a spirit and whatnot, trying to try to make contact with this person and then whatnot. But if I saw that, like if I was him and I saw that, and I've seen a lot of shit, to be 100% honest with you, I would just said, "Hello, friend." Just turn around, walk away. I'll explain one of my paranormal experiences I've had after the video.
Station on the district line, which killed 10 people, and Tariq was not the only person to have seen the blonde lady of Beacon Tree. 12 miles west of Beacon Tree, you will find the station at Hyde Park Corner, one of the most central stops on the network. Back in November of 1978, Barry Oakley was working the night shift, long after the last train had left. He and a colleague had shut the escalators down by removing the corresponding circuit breakers in the control room. They had then returned to the supervisor's office to continue their administrative tasks. At around 2:30 in the morning, they heard an almighty commotion outside, which sounded like grinding gears mixed with a rhythmic knocking. Running out to the foyer, they were surprised to see that one of the escalators they had previously shut down was now running again, but making a hell of a racket in the process. This came as a complete shock to the two men, because as far as they were aware, once the circuit breakers had been removed, it was impossible for the escalators to run, as there was no power going to them. Not only that, but it would require a special key to start back up again. After a brief investigation, in which they found that the circuit breaker was still removed, they managed to shut the escalator down once more, and then return to the office. Barry would later say that during this whole time, he had a strong sense that someone else was there in the station with them, besides himself and his colleague. After settling back into his paperwork, he happened to glance across to his co-worker and saw that he was now standing with his back flat against the office wall, pale-faced and clearly in some sort of trance. Barry's initial thought was that the man was having a seizure, as he was completely unresponsive. After several minutes, he came back to his senses, and with a haunted look, he said, "Did you see the face?" Apparently, as the two of them had been sitting there working away, a hideous face had appeared at the office window and stared at both of them. His colleague went home shortly afterwards and never returned to that particular station. Perhaps one of the most unenviable jobs on the London Underground is known as track walking. Track walkers are required to patrol the tunnels at night, long after the...
Believe it or not, up at the... what was it called? New York's... what was in New York? Yeah, New York. Anyhow, buddy of mine up in New York, whose name will be anonymous, I guess, he was also a track walker. And I want to tell this story before we get into this story, because I have actually heard this one before. Or a while back. I actually reviewed the footage of my messed up video I made, where I fucked up here, and yeah, stupid. And I know I fuck up. It's just what people do, you know. I've watched a video in the past. That's when it first. Well, actually, I watched it when it first came out. My bad. And when you're sitting in a doctor's office with nothing else to do, I might have to just redo this, or just quit. No, fucking no. No, I've smoked too much weed. I admit, I watched the video before. But anyhow, a buddy of mine who was a track walker working up in the New York subways, and whatnot, had a paranormal experience, and he was walking along the tracks, and all of a sudden he felt a spiderwebbish feeling on him, like on his face. And then he turned around, and he saw a man standing there in his flashlight, completely transparent and it was like a black figure just standing there, you know. I'm just playing, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for wasting time. I'm stoned. Let's continue.
Trains have stopped, usually moving from one station to another. They do this alone and completely in the dark, with only a battery-powered torch to light their way. During the early 2000s, Bill McCown was a veteran track walker, having been in the job for more than 20 years. On one particular occasion, he was walking the Jubilee line between the stations of Finchley and Charing Cross, a distance of about 8 miles. He decided to take a quick break on a stretch of track which ran between Baker Street and St John's Wood. He had been sitting down for about 2 minutes when he heard a strange sound off to his right. Shining his torch in that direction, he couldn't see anything, but then he suddenly noticed that the ballast between the tracks was moving. As the commotion moved closer to him, he could hear footsteps walking past, and in the torchlight, he could see the ballast sinking down with each step. Dumbfounded by what he was witnessing, Bill later reported that he felt a tingling sensation, like static, all through his body as it drew level with him. It carried on past him for about 10 meters, and then stopped. Sitting in complete silence once more, Bill now contemplated that he had to carry on walking in that same direction in order to finish his patrol, which he did with no small amount of trepidation. Upon reaching Charing Cross Station, his supervisor remarked on how pale he looked, and when Bill responded saying, "You're not going to believe what's just happened," his supervisor quickly cut him off and said, "Don't tell me you've seen footprints in the ballast." Bill was not the first person to have witnessed the phenomenon, and he wouldn't be the last. Records show that a track walker suffered a fatal heart attack whilst patrolling that same stretch of the Jubilee line many years before. Kennington is allegedly one of the most haunted stations on the network, with more unexplained phenomena being reported there than anywhere else, thanks to a section of track known as Kennington Loop. The loop exists to allow southbound trains to turn around and head north again. Passengers are cleared out at Kennington Station before the empty trains are sent into the loop, where they will often have to wait for up to 20 minutes in 150-year-old tunnels. And whilst they are waiting, there is no way anyone can get on or off the train. Bob Cairn and Larry DeLarabiti both worked on the Northern Line. Bob was a driver and Larry was a guard. Larry describes how many years ago he was working on a train that had been sent into the loop. There had been an incident further up the line, which meant that he and his driver were stuck there for about 10 minutes. Sitting in the rearmost carriage, he heard the unmistakable sound further up the train of the interconnecting doors between each car opening. It was getting closer and closer, until finally the doors to his carriage opened, and he turned expecting to see his driver, but there was nobody there. Similarly, Bob also heard the sound of the doors opening at the front end of the train, and he turned expecting to see his colleague, but was greeted by dead air. The twist in this tale is that Bob and Larry were on different trains. Their experiences took place 4 years apart from each other, and the two men have never met. The story goes that a passenger had been killed at Kennington 50 years beforehand, whilst trying to board the train between carriages. His body was dragged into the loop. It seems the London Underground is utterly steeped in stories of the unexplained. Almost every station appears to exhibit some form of strange phenomena, or has its own resident ghost, sometimes several. There is so much more to tell, from the accounts regarding the nun of Bank Monument Station, to the phantom maintenance man of South Island Place, from the crying children of Bethnal Green, to the demonic presence which stalks a disused tunnel at it, not to mention the strange activity often witnessed at the 15 abandoned stations still attached to the network. This is most definitely a subject we would like to visit in the near future, but in the meantime, is there any explanation for what people are experiencing?
No.
Unfortunately,
It's ghosts.
very little exists in the way of proof. Over the years, some
Or
interesting
spirits.
images have been captured, but like so
There's
many
many different
pictures of
names
so-called
for these.
ghosts, they are inconclusive. What we are left with is mostly anecdotal accounts. A study carried out by Coventry University within the last decade has uncovered high levels of infrasound in many of the alleged hotspots. But whilst this might account for feelings of unease or auditory anomalies, it would rarely, if ever, result in hallucinations of full-bodied apparitions. Whatever the case may be, whether people really are seeing the spirits of those who have tragically lost their lives in these tunnels, or are simply repeating well-established ghost stories for their 15 minutes of fame, it is probably best to approach the London Underground with an open mind. More often than not, it is the people who expect to see something who witness nothing at all, and those who expect to see nothing who end up having a life-changing experience.
Wise words. Okay. Now for the moment you all been waiting for. Here. I'm gonna tell a few stories about my personal ghost encounters, I guess you can call them. First one I ever experienced, I was 13, 14. And being raised on the Red Road, you actually hear a lot of, like, stories and whatnot. Like, about strange demons and evil spirits and whatnot. Well, it wasn't good for me. I encountered a friendly spirit. Actually, my bad. I was 9 then. I was 9 back then. My bad. Oh my god. The pot is. I need to take a tolerance break, guys. God damn. Yeah. Anyhow. Oh. First encounter I ever had, I was 9 years old. I'm sorry, guys. It's late. It's just late. I'm high. And I'm cold as fuck. Anyhow. Oh, I was sleeping in my bed, trying to go to sleep, and I felt something, like rubbing up and climbing up on my bed. I thought it was my cat at first. Coming up to lay on my bed and such. But when I looked up, it wasn't a cat. It was a spirit of a snake. And it was laying right on my freaking, like, calf and whatnot, in my bed, like on my freaking calf. I was like, what the fuck? And it's like a fuck. I'm not talking like a tiny snake. I'm talking like a fucking 20-foot boa constrictor. I was like, what the fuck? I come flying out of bed, running in the living room, and I'm saying, holy shit, there's a fucking snake in the fucking bed or whatever. And I was just like, holy shit. My fucking mom and dad walked into the fucking room. Nothing was there. And I know it was a spirit right now because it was slightly translucent and I mean I could see right through it. But it looked like a fucking boa constrictor. I found out later on from an old guy who's really into the like Red Road stuff and whatnot, and he told me that it was a ancient and boa constrictor that used to live around in this area of Oregon, which is the northeast Oregon. And can you believe that shit? It was like, I mean, like Neolithic age or shit. It was sort of green, like it had like a woodland camel kind of pattern to it, you know. But it was like a 20 fucking foot long boa constrictor. Can you believe that shit? Anyhow, oh fuck! I just realized my fucking dab rig spilled. Oh fuck! Oh my god, it's been a long day. Okay, I need to go to bed. Hopefully my roommate's either passed out or sobered up by now. And maybe I can wake him up and get him out of the frickin' floor and able to unlock the door. But anyhow, we're gonna smoke this bowl. It's not even a full bowl, it's just like a fucking lid on the bottom because I'm fucking rolling weed in here. And I got plenty of weed back in the house, I just gotta get it because that's my room. But I'm locked out because my roommate locked me out. Fucking sucks. Alright, enough about me. Let's take one final hit before I go. I don't even fucking know if I'm gonna upload this. I can tell you this much. Each one of my pieces that I own has a story behind it. If y'all want to see a storytime video on like a storytime video on some of my pieces, some of my pipes, and some of my bongs and shit, like the story behind this thing that I've been hiding from you guys. Unfortunately, right now it's broken on the bottom and up here because it fucking got knocked over. That's why it's covered in fucking Flex Seal and fucking Flex Tape. That's actually Flex Tape, believe it or not. That's actually Flex Tape, no fucking like Gorilla Tape. And we covered it in Flex Seal. Worked good for a while, but the bottom's starting to crack. I think I'm just gonna use it as a showpiece. And the freaking bowl broke on it, so I had to use a fucking socket. I got my toolkit. Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's been a long night. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and love to all y'all.